Everybody, welcome to what day for me? It's Wednesday. We are working today from the Forks and Knives Flavor Cookbook. We're making the Persian yellow split pea stew with, it says eggplant. I'm actually using zucchini because I like zucchini more than eggplant. So a few things were done ahead of time. One is I pre-cooked the yellow split peas. They get thrown into this recipe at the end, and because I'm making a double batch, technically speaking, maybe I could have let the split peas boil while I was prepping something else, but not when you're doing so much stuff. Another thing that I've gone ahead and done, so I needed 12 cloves of garlic per batch. I've got 3 batches going. That is 36 cloves of garlic. And the rice that I'm putting this over, each batch gets 6 cloves of garlic, so it's 18 more cloves. I have like 5 cloves of garlic, each one with the bulb. I just cut off the stem. I used the blunt end of a knife, so I took the sharp part and turned it away, pressed on top, and then the peel just slides right off. So I went ahead and did that. And then because there's so much garlic, I'm using a mini food processor that attaches to my immersion blender. So let me just pull out that top. So if you are in the market for an immersion blender, as I was at one point in my life, this one is a Braun. All the blades that it is used with are stainless steel. And so it has the traditional immersion blender attachment. It has this attachment, and so I have frequently used this to chop up a small amount of nuts or a small amount of vegetables. In this case, a small amount of garlic. So just to give you a sense of that, it has the red safety, so I hit that, it turns green on top. And round we go. It actually goes really fast. And I just want to do a slight turn so that my stuff on top goes down and gets an extra run through. And the happy thing about this recipe is she also measures in tablespoons with the garlic, so I won't really be like, oh, there's my 1 clove. I won't know. So this allows me to keep track of that still. And then just to keep my workspace clean, I'm going to actually put this part away. Because, you know, there's always enough going on my counter as it is. So I'm going to put this part away. I'm going to set this aside because I want to get my onions ready. And I've actually pulled out onion for both this recipe and another recipe. But my water that's going to saute is good to go. So I'm going to move this to the side. Move this to the side. And we're going to make fast work. So another thing that you could do is you could pull out a food processor to also chop up your onion. That would work just as reasonably well. I think this recipe calls, let me just give you the exact. For 1 medium yellow onion, I've got a red onion. You'll recall if you've watched some of these videos, the How Not to Die cookbook prefers red as a source of nutrients. But my other recipe for the rice also calls for a bunch of onion. So because we've got so much onion in demand, I'm just going to cut up a bunch of it. I'm going to go ahead and add this in with my stew. And I am so very excited about giving this recipe a try. It does have a ton of spices, so this is a Persian. It reminds me similarly of a lot of the Indian dishes with a lot of the flavor combinations. But the spices include cumin and coriander, turmeric, a little bit of cardamom, salt, pepper, and then saffron. So saffron's not so Indian, but so if I kind of give you a sense of these pots, I need to put a bunch into my double batch. So it's basically a whole handful of onion into one pot, and then the next, and then a little bit more in my double batch, and a little bit more in my single batch. So you see, I'm not being any too fancy about exactly how much, but if you're doing a single batch, 1 medium onion or so would do. so that can start doing its thing. In terms of how much garlic, it refers to it as 2 tablespoons per batch. So again, because I've got about 6 batches of garlic here, I'll go ahead and play a game I don't often play, and I'll measure out my garlic. Now, just to say, it occurred to me earlier today, there is also jarred garlic you can buy, which comes pre-minced, and it is fine as far as garlics go. They don't have quite as much potency is the thing. So I used to find when I bought the jarred garlic, I wanted to add more than a recipe called for because they just weren't as flavorful. But do what you see best to do, because at the end of the day, you have to cook. And if you don't have time to peel that garlic, there's no reason to not have a really good, wholesome meal just because you don't have time to peel the garlic. So give both of these a turn. We begin to see once again, so many recipes start with that base of garlic and onion. Celery sometimes when you're doing soups as well. But the saffron is the big surprise in this particular meal. So let me see where we're at. Bloop. You see you got some tomato sauce ready to go. My split peas are way over there. So, okay. Onion, garlic, and lemon rind and water. Great. So, lemon rind. I don't chop my own lemon rind because I'm lazy. So here I've got some dried lemon. I don't exactly know how much is 1 lemon rind. I feel like that's a guessing game for me. So we'll go with 1 teaspoon there and 2 teaspoons over here. Our accompanying Persian dill recipe, Persian dill rice recipe, is going to also use lemon rind. So I'm going to keep that over there. Now, this is another one of those things. I think adding the fresh lemon rind would be wonderful. I just hate doing it. I don't like using the graters that you have to use in order to get the rind. So whenever possible, I buy a dried orange rind, dried lemon rind. That's just how I'm managing my life. And we've all got to find that middle. You know, I think like sometimes people say there's so many ingredients. So for instance, you take a look, you see 3 columns of ingredients, and you say, oh my gosh, this is impossible. But this first one is your lentils, which is a pre-cook. And then you've got a few, right? Can't read upside down. Onion, garlic, lemon. So almost that first one is already in here or done. And then from this tomato sauce all the way down to the pinches of saffron and the rosebuds that we're not going to use. So all the way to the 3rd column, this bottom one, all the way to there is 1 step. It's just a bunch of spices and some tomato sauce. Then you've got your eggplant, which in this case is going to be zucchini, which brings you to that one. And then salt and lemon juice come at the end. So it looks like a lot, but it's because when you're cooking fresh, seasonings take space. They take up space to write down everything. So these are getting to that translucent state, which means that we're going to be able to add in our tomato sauce. And it's a lot of tomato sauce, just to kind of give you a heads up. But it's a stew, right? So it's going to be this thick sauce that goes over the rice. So actually, I'll start with this one because this one is going to be the biggest. It's 2 cans of tomato sauce per recipe. So that means I opened 6 cans. But you could also buy like a big 28-ounce can and be done with it. So you kind of want to keep that in mind too. I just get these in bulk, and this is the size that they come in. You either get one that feeds 60 people, and now you really have to make a plan for that tomato sauce, or you get a bunch of these little cans. So this is my compromise. So 2 over there, we'll put 2 here just to keep things from getting sticky at the bottom. And you know, if you were cooking a single batch, you'd be done already. And just to also keep track, for those of you who might be like a 1 person in a spot, and so you don't want to have this much food on hand, imagine, right? You could have been done at 6 cloves of garlic and 1 can of tomato sauce. Very havable as well as a recipe. You could do a half an onion, or you could put in the whole onion. It depends on how much onion you like in your life. So we're adding this tomato sauce in, which, by the way, will bubble. So you got to keep an eye out for really yucky boiling. That's not my favorite thing to happen. And then I have the double batch of spices and the single batch of spices. So they go right in, right? That's like almost an entire column and a half of ingredients right there. And as I'm recalling, I need to add 2 cups of water per. So keep an eye on my stuff, you guys. Make sure it doesn't boil too much. I want to get it in here first. There's my 4 for that one. And then my 2 for this one. So you see how quickly these types of things fill up. You think, well, I've just got a little onion and garlic. There's not much going on in there. So we're going to incorporate all those spices. Now, rosebuds, I think you could actually get at like an Asian market, the edible flower. I did not bother to add that kind of stress to my life. So we are going to not have rosebuds in our Persian stew today. And you see I also have hands of steel. I'm touching the side of this pot with no trouble, not being burned at all. It's quite remarkable. And then this one, a little easier because it has fewer spices to incorporate. So let me go ahead and grab for us. I'll let you travel with me. Come on over. You see over here we've got our lentils are ready to go, our lemon juice is ready to go, and what I need from the fridge is zucchini. So again, the actual recipe calls for eggplant. I just prefer zucchini. So do whatever makes you happy. I find them to be a similar family. I see them as being stocked in the same area for that reason. But this particular sauce and warming, stir to combine, lemon rind, add the tomato sauce. These go on top, and then it just cooks with the lid closed, I would imagine. Nope, high heat, low simmer, 30 minutes. So you don't even have to close the lid. 30 minutes, it just sits on top and kind of gets the steam of that. Once that happens, you throw in your split peas, you throw in your lemon juice, you let it cook like 5 more minutes just to let all the flavors come together, and you're done. So the question is, 1 large eggplant or 1.5 pounds. So I'm going to go with, come on over here, probably 1.5 zucchini, and then 3 zucchini, I guess it would be. So, or 2.5. Wow, math is so much fun. So I like using zucchini. It doesn't take a lot of work. I'm working for not like super thick or thin, so I'm doing like this much, almost like a cucumber slice, because I want them to cook through. Actually, and as I'm thinking about it, because again we're cooking for the littles, what I probably would want to do is cut these into little half moons. It just makes it easier for the littles. So in my next one I'll cut it differently, because I can create that half before I start going to town. But the littles, I don't like to have to cut up their food once we're ready to eat. So it's easier for me if I go ahead and do that pre-cutting ahead of time. And then for them, that is still a very large item in their mouth, right? That still is not easy for them. So I'm going to kind of take that one and move it around in this pot carefully, because tomato water splatters, as I just saw. So when I'm doing something like that, I'll just like barely cut off the ends. I go ahead and just cut it right down the middle, so I have 2 halves of the zucchini. And then I can do that rocking motion where the tip of my knife stays on the cutting board, and I can just go whoop, 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 all the way down, which some friends of mine saw over the weekend. They were like, oh, she's getting at it. So, honestly, this comes down to like you're using vegetables again, and when it comes to using vegetables, my answer is use more vegetables. Why only use a few? Vegetables are super good for you. So don't feel like you have to skimp on the veggies. I often find like what looks like a lot on the cutting board, once it gets distributed amongst all the food and you've got people eating in bulk, those vegetables go really fast. They're not, I've never been like, oh darn it, too many vegetables. It's never happened, not once. Okay, give this pot some zucchini. And this may only need like 20 minutes even, because zucchini cooks pretty quickly. You don't need it to dissolve. And that's part of what I don't like about eggplant. I feel like it just dissolves. So you keep the skin on. You'll at least find the zucchini because of the skin. Or sorry, not the zucchini, the eggplant. And zucchini has a way of melting down too almost. Like it just cooks into nothing. So you want to be kind of aware of that. Everything else in this dish is already cooked. So really you're cooking for flavors, for the melding of the flavors. And so if you think you're done, maybe you're done. That's kind of the key there. I'm going to use this last zucchini. I think I bought it as an extra, but as I'm sitting here, I'm like talking to you, telling you all about why not more vegetables. I feel inspired. I feel inspired to say yes to more vegetables. I'm going to cut them in half and just go for it. So easy. That's really a low production. Once you got past all the garlic that you needed for this recipe, it comes together really fast, which as I recall was the reason I picked it for this day. I had a meeting this morning, right? So I cooked the rice and the lentils before my meeting and then ran off, and here we are. So I'm just going to allow that to come together in the pot. It's not that much, and this will get the lentils after the fact added in with the lemon juice. I've already added salt, which the recipe calls for, and then that aspect of it is done. So what I'm going to do is say goodbye to this particular moment, and then I'm going to come back and do the other recipe, which is this Persian dill lima bean rice recipe, and I'll link these two videos together so that you can see them as a pair, but you could also serve this particular meal with just rice. But keeping in mind this is still kind of soupy, right? It's going to get that stew quality when you add the lentils, which I can show you. They're not pretty right now because they're cooked and they're in a pan that it was cooking in, so it's just like, but you know, splat. It's cooked lentils, so it's like a mushy bean, if you will. And these were the yellow split peas. So that's going to have a lot of protein in it for you. And then I actually am going, oh, I want to do one more thing for you. The mint is a garnish you can put on top. And so I've bought some mint. And this would be true if you were doing basil too. So you want to take your leaves off of the big stem. And I forget how much it says. Finely chopped fresh mint optional. So this is just a garnish, and you would just pick an amount to sprinkle on top of your food. But do pull it off of that big thick stem. And then, as would also be true for basil, I'll pull you in a little closer here so you can see. And you want to be careful with knives. This is one of those things where, like, because you're pressing into this fine, you can easily cut your fingers. So you want to keep moving those fingers back as you go. Don't let that knife bully your thumb or your forefinger, because it happens. I actually, maybe a month ago, had cut my, like this nail, and it was way down in the middle. It was so sad, and I had to wear a Band-Aid forever. So first I'm going to go all the ways with that, and then I'm going to come back another way. And then once I've done that a couple times, I'm just going to go up on top of the knife and allow that to get a little thinner. But this will brighten the flavor on your dish as well. It just really adds this beautiful flavor. If you don't have it, obviously it's optional, so you don't need it, just like the rosebuds. You could add a little dried mint into your sauce while it's cooking as an alternative. Like I've said with the minced garlic that comes in a jar, it's not exactly the same. But so it's pretty finely minced then at that point. Let me see if I can pull that up. So just tiny little flecks of mint at that point. So I wanted to make sure to show you that. This will go into a small container similar to these I tend to keep them in. And then we'll go from there. But to give you one more quick picture of these, they're just warming and letting that spice kind of cook into the sauce. It's really quite beautiful. And we'll let them do their thing before we add in the finishing touches at the end. And that is that stew. So thanks so much. Like I said, I'll link that other recipe to this particular video, and we'll talk to you later.